Well, welcome to the Love edition of Washington Informer's digital broadcast on WIN TV. We're bringing you news that matters. I'm Denise Rollard Barnes, publisher of the Washington Informer, and love being your host of WIN TV. I hope you've had a chance to pick up a copy of this week's Informer. I always like to show it to you. We're on newsstands today. And we've got some great stories in here, published always by our great group of reporters and photos by our photographers. And check out our advertisers as well. Some businesses, particularly small businesses, you think can support or would like to support. Go on and check them out and tell them you saw their ad in the Washington Informer. As I said, you can also read the Informer online at www.washingtoninformer.com. If you're watching on Facebook, go ahead and hit share so our followers can see the broadcast. And if you're watching on Twitter, be sure to follow us and we'll follow you back. And if you're a TikTok user, you can follow us there too. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Washington Informer TV. That's one word, Washington Informer TV. Follow us there. We have a lot to talk about today because, Monday is Valentine's Day. I'm skipping over Super Bowl. Everybody knows Sunday is Super Bowl Sunday. So if you all plan to spend the day watching the Super Bowl, you've got tomorrow to get ready to celebrate that wonderful holiday known as Valentine's Day. Some consider it just another pagan holiday, but we believe it's time to share some love, especially here in the DMV. WIN TV is celebrating love with a collaborative project we call Show Me Love DMV. Washington Informer reporters talk to couples around the area, including yours truly and my husband, Lafayette, to hear what we have to say or what they have to say about love. You'll get to participate by giving your relationship advice on our social media platforms. Today, we're going to talk to Dr. Satira Streeter Corbett, a couples therapist who will give us professional advice on relationships. Also joining us today to talk about Black Love Day is breathologist and, of course, our very own beloved Ayo Handy-Kendi. She is the founder and director of the African American Holiday Association, created in 1989, and she stewards Black Love Day on February 13th. And for our Black History segment, we'll talk to Howard University College of Medicine Associate Professor, Dr. Golda Downer, about the international campaign petitioning President Biden to exonerate political activists, publisher, journalist, entrepreneur, orator, and founder of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the late Marcus Mosiah Garvey Sr. Really want you to hear that conversation. And we'll also talk to Brigitte Tapp for Black History Month. Can you believe it? Her great-great-grandmother once owned several properties right here in the District of Columbia. And today we would have called them Airbnbs. But we're going to talk to Brigitte to find out, one, about her book that she wrote not too long ago, and also to talk about the life and legacy of her great-grandmother. But before we talk to our first guest, let's watch the WIN TV News broadcast from Curtis Knowles.
This is WIN TV News, bringing you the news that matters. Congress has passed the Postal Service Reform Act. The measure, which passed on Tuesday by a vote of 342 to 92, is seen by many as a critical reform that will repeal the pre-funding mandate, a rule passed in 2006 that crippled the Postal Service's financial independence. The bill helps to modernize the Postal Service, ensure faster and more dependable deliveries, increase oversight and accountability, as well as protect rural newspapers. The measure also requires that the Postal Service to deliver mail in packages at least 6 days per week across an integrated network. Despite the recent defeats of the voting rights bills, advocates for D.C. statehood have yet to let up. During the week of January 17th through the 20th, the U.S. Senate failed to consider the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act and the Freedom to Vote Act because Democrats did not have the required 60 votes to bring the legislation to the floor. All hope is not lost, however, as D.C. Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton told The Informer that the two voting rights bills that failed were put forth on purpose. We knew they would fail. What we are trying to do is galvanize our base for the November midterm elections. The Department of Health and Human Services have unveiled a new program geared towards substance abuse and overdose prevention. The program is authorized under President Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan Act. The program would include funding for harm reduction strategies such as safe smoking kits, to which the contents of these kits is to be announced. Policy Director Dr. Arul Gupta of the Office of National Drug Control said in a statement that the goal of harm reduction is to save lives. Hip-hop legend and entrepreneur Snoop Dogg has recently acquired the record label Death Row Records and is now the owner. The brand was purchased from MNRK Music Group, which details of the transaction have yet to be revealed. Snoop commented on the acquisition, saying, "I am thrilled and appreciative of the opportunity to acquire the iconic and culturally significant Death Row Records brand, which has immense untapped future value. It feels good to have ownership of the label I was part of at the beginning of my career and as one of the founding members." This is Curtis Knowles with WIN TV News.
Thank you so very much, Curtis, and glad to have you back. We want to get on with our show, and it's my pleasure to bring to you Dr. Satira Streeter Corbett. Dr.
Hello.
Corbett, how are you? Welcome to WIN TV.
I'm good. So happy to be here.
So am I, because we're talking about Black love and what that all means. But, love relationships are difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And we are grateful to have people like yourself, who can help us through couples therapy to learn, when we reach these what seem insurmountable hurdles, to help us go through. So tell me, how does couples therapy work? What do you do?
Absolutely. So as a licensed clinical psychologist, I've always, for the last 20 years, been available to my community, especially my Southeast community, to serve whatever need is necessary. So couples or individuals may come to us and say, hey, we need to do some work on our relationship. And they have already talked to their partner and said, hey, I want to go and focus on therapy so we can figure out some tools to make our relationship better. And, sometimes that referrals through word of mouth. Sometimes they go through their insurance company or, see us on social media or somewhere else. But our goal is to help couples, because helping couples, of course, that's the cornerstone of our Black community. So if we can get healthy relationships, then we make sure that they're healthier as parents, as community members, and as children of their own families. So we really want to make sure that we strengthen relationships, because there are so many things out here, from past and present that are working, it seems, to break down our relationships and make them weaker when they really do need to be strong.
At what point in a relationship, a lot of folks, we have some funny videos that folks will be able to see from some of the couples we've interviewed over the past week, and people meet each other and they end up in relationships. But at what point in the relationship is it like, right when they, do people commit to each other anymore? That's one of the things. But how do you get to that? And what does it look like? What do people have to say to each other, or do you get people to understand about each other, to understand whether they're actually in a committed relationship?
Right. So we definitely see a range. I see couples who are premarital. They're thinking about getting married. They're thinking about moving in together. So they're in those early stages, and maybe they've seen some models of unhealthy relationships. So they literally say, hey, I want to do this different. I want to have a relationship that lasts. I don't want this to end up in divorce or in some type of ugly breakup. So let's do this now, before we even get started, when we don't even really have any issues, but we just want to make sure we have these tools. And then I've seen couples that have been married for 30 or 40 years that basically are like, we need to get the spark back. This relationship used to be good, but now we're just kind of here existing together. So definitely the range, and it really is whether couples are coming just for the tools to get started or because they need the tools to light that spark. We're here for it.
And so, a couple decides at this point, they want to get married, right? Mm-hmm. And so do you advise couples to go through some type of therapy or counseling before they say I do?
I do. And the reason for that is I work, almost exclusively with African-American couples. And I know, we were never, from being stolen from Africa and brought here. The intention was never for us to to join together and have happy, healthy relationships or anything like that. That wasn't the purpose of why we're here. So there have been these systems throughout that have broken us apart. So with that being the case, and with, I'm a child of the 70s and 80s, and even, when I talk to couples from my era, they say, well, the first happy relationship I ever saw was on the Cosby Show. So being able to know that kind of there's some things against us when it comes to having a healthy relationship is all the more reason to say, hey, how can we be proactive to make sure that we do this differently? And, the key to that is communication and actually really knowing yourself, and then really being able to know your partner. And that's what we really focus on in that couples therapy.
I mentioned earlier off camera to you about young couple that I know that, started having counseling or therapy before they got married. They've now been married for 5 years, and they, from my understanding, are still going to a therapist once a month, which they've been doing for 5 years. Does that make sense? Is it necessary to do that?
Now, to me, I can't speak on another professional, but from my standpoint and from the professionals I know, it absolutely does not make sense. My point in therapy, I want to bring you in. I want us to talk. I want to give you the tools, and then I want you to move on. I don't want to become a part of your relationship. I want to be, even in couples therapy, the couple, is hard in this virtual space because they're talking to the computer, looking at me. But even then, I say, no, say that to your partner. Don't tell me how you're feeling, tell your partner. So really teaching them to connect together so that I can become obsolete. And I want them at some point to say, we don't need Dr. Streeter anymore. We got this. That I want to be not needed. I want them not to look to me, because I want to know that I've given them the tools and the resources so they can find it within themselves and each other.
What do you think are some of the pitfalls of marriage or what happens in relationships, that people don't know? It's just, they go down a road and all is well. And then certain things just intervene, what I guess you see certain things. What are some of the commonalities you see in that helps to, weaken relationships?
So as I mentioned, one huge one is just not having a model for communication, not really having seen that growing up. And not really knowing how do you work things out? How do you compromise? How do you negotiate? So that becomes one huge issue. Another is not knowing yourself. If you get married at a point where you haven't done the work to figure out what your traumas and your triumphs have looked like and how they've impacted you, if you're not in that space, if you don't know what your dreams are, what your goals are, and then you try to connect with someone else, it's really, really hard to be able to make that a healthy relationship. I had a mentor who would always, I jokingly asked after church one Sunday, I said, well, where's your other half? And he literally sat me down, and for 15 minutes, and this is like 20 years ago, 15 minutes, he talked to me about how his wife was not his other half. He is whole, she is whole. And that's how they make a wonderful connection. And that was before I was married. That's when I was really young in my career. And that really stuck with me, because we have a whole bunch of halves trying to connect with another half, and it doesn't work out too well. So we really do need to be whole before we enter a relationship. And of course, your partner can make you better, and they can help you, and they can help to elevate you. But if they're not whole themselves and they haven't done their own personal work, it really does, it doesn't turn out well oftentimes.
And how would a couple actually find somebody like you? I mean, I'm glad that you're here on the show, so they will let folks know how, if you're accepting new clients, how they can reach out to you. But generally speaking, you're in crisis and you don't know who to talk to. Do I go to my preacher? What are the pitfalls of going to family members, friends?
Right.
Or how do you find that therapist that, is going to be helpful to you?
Right. One thing I do feel like word of mouth is really important. And it's so interesting. When I became a psychologist in 2001, it was still real hush hush. You didn't tell anybody you were going to therapy, because that was, possibly against the church, or that was telling too much of your family's business. And I opened up my practice right in Anacostia. And, other therapists would say, you'll be shut down in a year because Black people don't go to therapy. But what I've seen over the last 20 years is I've seen people open up to therapy. I've seen, individuals embrace it. I see it become popular on social media, on TV, and all of these different vehicles. So it really is, people are talking more about therapy. Hey, you have a therapist. Who do you all go see? Hey, I know you and your husband had a rough spot. Who did you see for that? So I think that's one way. And another way, we know that whether we like it or not, social media is a huge vehicle to get to know people and to figure out what their philosophies are. So really being able to look up Black psychologists, to focus on who could possibly be a fit for you, and then calling that person. And I tell people all the time, you need to do an interview. You need to interview someone that's a potential therapist and see if it's a fit, because it's not always so.
And now, because mental health is such a critical issue in communities nationwide, therapy sometimes is paid for. People can use their insurance. Is that something you're seeing more of now with certain insurance carriers?
Right. So I'm a person who always wanted to get my full money's worth from everything I buy. And I've seen, in the past where people would have insurance and they would have mental health benefits included, but literally would not touch that piece. But really getting the word out that no, therapy is health. Mental health is health. So that is included on most insurance plans. So being able to, why let that part of your plan go to waste? Go get you some therapy if you feel like you need it. And we all need somebody to talk to at some point of our life.
Oh, no question. That's why I do Win TV, because I need people to talk to. So that's really great. Well, how's your business now? Are you accepting new clients as well?
We are accepting new couples. Like I said, I've definitely made a shift because with the limited time I have, because of my family and because of the clients that I've had, throughout the years, I had to figure out where could I really be most helpful? How can my hour be best spent? If I only have 8 hours of a day to see clients. And I really did find that what I was getting from couples therapy and being able to work with both of them in the room, made such a difference. And especially because I'm concerned about children, it makes a difference to the children. I've done, child psychology for years. But when we get parents on board and we get parents on the right page, because typically the issue is not the child. The issue oftentimes is the parent. And if we can help parents, be better for themselves and then better for their children, then again, things change.
Wow, that's amazing. That's wonderful. So we've put your website up on the screen, and we would advise anybody who just wants a moment to have a conversation with Dr. Corbett or Dr. Satira to go ahead and link up with her. And let me ask you just the last question. What is the first thing you might ask a couple when they come to you? What's the first thing? Because everybody wants to get into the blame game, and I'm here because he did or she did. But what's the first question you ask?
Of course, the first question is, how can I help? And I really do want to hear that from both sides of the story. And then my next question is, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to do to improve the relationship? What are you willing to do to improve your life and how you're feeling? And really kind of putting that back on them to know what their limits are, so that we can work off of that and we can work off of the strengths. And I also am asking, what are the strengths of the relationship? Oftentimes people are talking about the weaknesses or the challenges, but I want to know where are you all strong? So, and how can we build on those strengths? So that is that's where we go. I'm so, pleased that I can't wait to hear Mama Ayo in a few minutes to talk about Black Love Day, because that's something that I feel like I've been celebrating even before I was allowed to have a Black love. But, just being able to give couples those times to celebrate and focus on how strong and powerful and miraculous the Black love truly is always where I go again, from that strength point of our love and our relationships.
Dr. Satira, thank you so much. You've given us a great segue to Ayo Handy-Kendi. We're going to go to her next, but thank you so much for being with us, and thank you for what you do to keep Black love alive.
Thank you.
All righty. So we're going to move now to Ayo Handy-Kendi. Hi there, Ayo. How are you?
I am so grateful, and thank you, Dr. Corbett. I took notes. Very, very helpful. I really appreciate you too. Thank you for sharing space, and thank you, Denise. I'm so glad to see you.
Well, likewise.
Yes, want to give thanks and praise to the Almighty for just being here.
Yes. And you have been, helping to spread the love and helping, I know this has to be somewhat a troubling time for you, maybe as well as all of us, because we've gone through COVID. We've dealt with the whole Black Lives Matter movement because of, just what's happening to Black people across this country. We've seen what's happening with so many, with the violence, regardless of race. It's been a pretty tough time. And so, if there's ever any time we need to talk about Black love or Black Love Day, it's right at this moment.
Yes, yes.
So tell me, why did you create Black Love Day?
Uh, Black Love Day was not a intellectual creation of
Okay.
myself. It was actually, I speak of it as a spiritual download. It was an inspiration from God. You know how the Blues Brothers were saying, I got a message from God, in that movie. I did. I got a message from the Creator. I was having a low period in my life. I decided at the first of the year in 1993 to take myself without my significant other that I had broken up with. And I went by myself to the movie, and I went to see the movie Malcolm X, the version that Spike Lee had created. And when I saw that scene of black men killing my hero, Malcolm, I just really felt that. And as I sat into this bus coming home, this was an unusually hot day in DC. So it was just sunlight pouring inside of this bus. And I remember saying to myself, what can I do to stop violence and increase peace? And I heard through the sunlight of the bus, we need more Black love. We need more
Mm.
Black love. And the voice just kept coming to me, and it kept coming and coming every time I meditated, every time I sat quietly. We need more Black love. We need more Black love. Well, after about 3 or 4 days of hearing the voice, I believed it because I was already the founder of the African American Holiday Expo, which had started in 1989. And here, this is 93. I just
Yeah.
believe that. I said, so what do you want me to do? Do you want me to start a Black Love Day? And I believe that I satisfied the voice. And from that point, for about 40 days later, books start falling off the shelf about Black love. The date of the 13th, Tony Browder speaks of that in one of his books. That fell off the shelf, and it was like open right there to the page. And I found out that the number 13 is a spiritual number of transformation. And so I said we should have this on the 13th instead of the 14th. I had done studies about Valentine's Day and its commercialism and how all holidays affect people of African descent. And so I knew that we needed an alternative to the commercialism that is not spiritual on Valentine's Day, and that we needed a holiday that reflected us and our love needs and our culture. And so we had our first Black Love Day at the mayor's office in 93. And now here we are 29 years later, still celebrating our Black love.
So we will be. How do we celebrate Black love? I mean, and it is a day,
It is
but I think it's also, I would look at it also as a kind of a movement. But how do we celebrate Black love?
Well, Black Love Day is now defined as the fourth oldest commemorative holiday, a day of observance, a day of celebration, a day of reconciliation and atonement, focusing on the guiding principles of what we call 5 loving acts, the 5 acts of love. And that's the opportunity to demonstrate showing love for the Creator, ourself, our Black family, our Black community, and the Black diaspora. And we encourage people that day to use those guiding principles to show love in action. You don't just necessarily give a gift and that's your expression of love. It is an expression of love. But no, to give of yourself in love, to be more kinder that day, to be mindful of the connection that we have as a people and how we have to just love Black people. It's a day, I say, of being unapologetically Black, spend our money with people who look like us as an act of sharing our wealth and our empowerment so that we can all be elevated. It's a powerful day where we can transform in love. In the Black Love book, where I've been blessed to been able to write the rituals, the ceremonies, ways in which, people have actually asked me, how do I spend 24 hours demonstrating love?
Right.
Yeah, we demonstrate all other kinds of ways against things that, we want to see change in our community. Well, for 24 hours, just allow yourself to be love, give love, share love, talk about love, everything about love, because we really are a loving people who were taught not to love ourselves and to be
So
able to come back to ourselves. We
is
must
there
demonstrate love. Yes.
right? Is there anything in particular that you have planned for that day that folks
Yes.
need? I mean, for those who are not football fans,
Yes.
to be
Yes.
able to come and and share some loving activities.
Yes.
What do you have planned?
We always say it's not so much where you go for Black Love Day, but it's what you
Okay.
do with Black Love Day. But
Hmm.
because we are the stewards, the African American Holiday Association is the steward of Black Love Day. We have a relationship ceremony. We call it this year the official relationship ceremony because there's all kinds of Black Love Day events and activities now that have been born out of this movement. It is a Black Love movement. So we are having and hosting a 2-day day of celebration and talks and discussions, relationship, forms, reconciliation, rituals that will be on this weekend, the 12th and the 13th. 13th being always the official day of Black Love Day.
And so, how can people participate?
Yes, people should contact us at www.africanamericanholidays.org, and that's on the end, africanamericanholidays.org. You'll learn about what to do on Black Love Day, the colors to wear, purple and black, some of the rituals and concepts on how to share love. And you can get the link so you can pre-register at Eventbrite for this weekend's recognition, the official Black Love Day this weekend.
What can we do, Ayo, do you think, as a community to really show? I mean, this is a big concern right now because the mayor, the council, the police, everybody's trying to deal with issues that affect young people in this city.
Yes.
And I think a lot of it, this is Denise speaking here, has to do with maybe these kids not understanding that they have a voice, that they're appreciated, that I mean, I don't know, but what could we do in our communities to really turn if to turn this tide around as it relates to some of the violence we're seeing that's being committed by
Yes.
children, young people?
Yes.
What's missing? What do we need to do?
Yes. I know that Valentine's Day can be a very violent time. It's going to be it's always a spike around this time of the year. As a founder of this day, also as a mother who lost his son to violence, lots of young people in my community were taken from violence against each other. And I've been working on pro peace for a long time. And this year's our tenet, showing love for the Creator, we elevated it as the tenet. Our message this year is finding spiritual joy through our Black love. And with all this isolation, all this fear, all this trauma, right? We really truly need to help our young people come back to the reality that there is something higher than their self. There's a spiritual essence in love that helps us transform. If we understand that we are in the image of a living God, that if we can teach our children, that means that the Creator is always listening to us, watching our thoughts. And when I look at you, I see the Creator. When you look at me, you see the Creator. And so you're less likely to harm someone who looks like you. You're more willing to slow down and recognize that this is not some TV sitcom concept, but this is reality. And we learn that through the Creator's love for us, that we truly, truly can shift and change and grow. That's the divine love that we must have for each other. So we can give our children something else to hold on to, hope and resilience, which is the opposite of fear and trauma and pain. And so we really do encourage people to see that this year's message is very much needed at this time.
that hope and resilience, I think, really rings true, and we cannot lose either one. And we have to figure out how to instill it,
That's
particularly in
right.
young folks. I
Faith,
appreciate you sharing that with us.
yes, faith to me gives us hope and resilience.
Right. Ayo Handy-Kendi, thank you so much for being with us, for talking about Black Love Day. We hope that everybody feels the spirit, not only on February 13th, but it carries them through the
Yes,
rest of the year and the rest of their lives. And we really appreciate the fact that you're here to share this with us. So
I
keep on
appreciate.
keeping on, my sister.
All right, the greetings in your coma. Be patient. Have a heart. Return to love.
All right. All right. Thank you so much. Yeah, February 13th, Black Love Day. Just kind of write out a sign and put it on your mirror so that when you wake up in the morning, you can look at yourself and say, I love me, or I love you, but you'll be talking to yourself. How about that? I want to turn now to Dr. Golda Downer, who really has, I think, some powerful news to share with us and some action steps that we need to do. One, not only to deal with the fact that we just had Monday, which was National Black HIV and AIDS Awareness Day, but also this project to get these 100,000 signatures to pardon, or what we prefer to say is exonerate, Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Dr. Downer, thank you for being with us. We got a lot to talk about in a couple of minutes, but let's go for it. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much, Denise, for having me here.
Oh, it's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. So let's talk a little bit about the National HIV Integration Project. What is that?
As you mentioned, Monday past was Black AIDS Awareness, HIV Awareness Day. And although we've made great strides in addressing HIV in the US, it's our communities, African American communities, that continue to bear the brunt of this disease. The federal government recognized that there are several factors that is causing this. One of them is a lack of trained clinicians to be able to treat us where we need treatment. And so what we've been tasked with doing, we're funded a multi-million-dollar funding by the federal government to do, is to integrate into the curriculum of our health practicing institutions of higher learning HIV. So it's integrated into 24 HBCUs so that our faculty know how to identify, treat, and care for our communities. I mean, if I'm ill and I'm coming in to see you and you don't know how to provide care for me, I'm not going to be healed, or at least live a quality life. So the project has been doing this for the 4 years, and we strengthened the HIV clinical workforce for the US.
It's interesting because I was just thinking that the other day. I am seeing actually one pharmaceutical company that's doing a lot of advertising right now that we're seeing on television. And I thought to myself, I haven't seen this much advertising in the past years. And I just asked, I wonder why. So, and I don't know if it has to do with, just the fact that, is it COVID related, or is it just what you just said, that there's just not enough being done right now, or the efforts that you all are putting forth, to make sure that the Black community, if can find a way to kick this virus. So how would you respond to that?
We know that people who are living with HIV now have benefited from the scientific breakthroughs that although we don't have a vaccine or we don't have a cure, we have the tools that makes HIV now not a crisis, but manageable. So whereas, 30 years ago, we are having patients taking 20, even 30 tablets a day, right? The pill burden was too much. We now have injectables, right? You get 2 injections twice a month. I mean, so not only will that help in terms of quality of life, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the results of years of study now to make the treatment modality more acceptable, easily integrated into quality of life so folks can actually live. You can live forever, really now, with this disease. We still want people not to be getting it because our community continues to suffer the brunt of this for many reasons, as I said before. One of them, of course, is the people who, like myself, who were in the field long ago. Many of our young folks are aging out, but it's been a challenge, but we need to pay attention.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for that. I'm going to switch now to this project that we don't, can't last forever. It's been for so long that folks have attempted to get this pardon for Marcus Garvey. And now we've got a deadline of March the 2nd to get 100,000 signatures on a petition to President Biden to have Marcus Garvey exonerated. Talk to me about this effort.
You know, in 2016, when we met with Dr. Julius Garvey, the Caribbean American Political Action Committee, which is the only such organization in the DMV, said we would help. And so we started a petition in 2016. That was during President Obama's second administration. When President Obama came into office, the number of signatures that were needed was 5,000. But the first term that he came in, they changed it to 25,000. And in the second term, because so many people were asking, they put it to 100,000. Well, the 2016 was the year the 100,000 started. We thought that, you know, marketing to the South America and North America, that we would have been able to get the numbers that we needed, but we fell way short, less than 50,000 signatures. So last year when we had the Africans Unite Summit, we asked for everyone around the globe. And we decided then that we would start planning for this event. So we have a focal point from Asia, Europe, Africa, North America, and South America. And so each of those together, it is a global clarion call. The pardon that we're asking for, we know that he did not do anything wrong. And what we now know, we said, because the government only has a presidential pardon, they don't have an exoneration. So that's what we're asking for. But the pardon will go a long way to exonerate him from this travesty of justice that was meted upon him and allow his family to live out their lives without this cloud hanging over it.
We're going to talk a little bit more in an upcoming show, really about who Marcus Garvey was. And we know that he was a Jamaican American who came to the United States, who probably led who did lead one of the largest movements of the Negro Improvement Association, but one of the biggest movements for self-determination and Black nationalism in America. And the government was able to not only charge him, convict him, deport him for mail fraud charges, but charges that were never proven. So this is why this movement has begun. Is there something folks are trying to do to clear Marcus Garvey's name as well?
So we have the legal arm of this effort that's going on simultaneously. The same legal arm that presented in 2016 to President Obama's administration, but it was not effective. So we're continuing that fight. And instead of having one, we're having two. So the legal arm will continue to push for this. And the global call will also be a part of the whole issue. You know, when we get to the 100,000 signatures, I'm confident we can do that. There are 2 million Black people on this planet. Right? Marcus Garvey, we are the beneficiaries of his vision. He helped us to, as Ayo just said a while ago, love ourselves. He helped us to understand that as a people, we are powerful. And he clarified the question for us of who we are. We are powerful. We've got to claim that. And I'm hoping that everybody who's watching this show will go out and sign this petition for not just this generation, but for the next one and the one to come, to carry it into the next generation and to go back and honor our ancestors. This is the least we can do.
I'm going to ask Sherry to put the flyer back up on the screen again, but there's the justiceforgarvey.org website that folks can go to. There they can get the link that will take them to the site where you can ask or sign a petition, which goes directly to the White House. Make sure that when you do that, well, I'll let you do that, Dr. Golda Downer. Tell them what they need to do. Sherry, can we put it back up again?
When you go into the link, and it says message type, please click the button that says contact the president. You have the vice president and other numbers there. Make sure you click the president. It asks you for some additional information, some contact information about yourself. And then it says, what would you like to say? Please make sure you put exonerate Marcus Garvey. You can say pardon him also, that's fine. But his name should be there and what we want. If you don't do that, your petition will not be valid. We want to make no excuses, none at all. We can do this.
All right. Well, I again, thank you very much for being with us. We certainly do want to hear the good news. I know the deadline, as we said, is March the 2nd, We want to hear the news that at least that 100,000 signatures, if not more, were received. And like I said, next week, we hope to have the attorney, one of the lawyers is working on this case or in the situation, to be with us, as well as one of the book sellers. Mahogany Books is very active, engaged in this as well. And so hopefully we can have them on also. So Dr. Downer, thank you so very much for joining us. Is there anything we didn't say that you might want to add to this part of the conversation?
I just want to say a people without a knowledge of their past history, origin, or culture is like a tree without roots. Marcus Garvey.
All right. Dr. Carter G. Woodson would love that, this Black History Month. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so if you've listening to this broadcast, and if you actually sign that petition, you can get that link, share it with your friends, colleagues, and anybody. I was actually on a call last Sunday. There were about 400 people from around the United States, mostly, and some outside of the US that were on that call, looking for ways that they can support this effort. And if you don't know anything about Marcus Garvey, this is the time to read about him. Nobody's reputation or background is flawless, but the point was, I think Marcus Garvey initiated a movement that was quite exemplary when it came to self-determination, self-reliance, and self-love for Black people. So check it out, teach your children about Garvey, and see what you can do if you're willing to get those petitions signed. So again, as we're still here in Black History Month, I want to bring on a friend that I haven't seen in quite a long time. Actually, I thought she was still out in the West, and that's Brigitte Tapp, who is an author and construction company owner and grandma and historian and my Cameroonian sister, and we can go on and on. Is that right, Brigitte?
That's right, Denise. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to celebrate my third great grandmother, Miss Asalee Seabrook. Thank you so much for Black History Month. She was a businesswoman of what we now call and refer to as Airbnbs here in DC in the 1940s.
So give me some background on your great grandmother and why you became so interested in her story.
Oh my! Well, this is a story that has been in my family for nearly 100 years. It is recorded that my grandmother purchased more than 10 properties here in Washington, D.C. It's recorded in the historical properties in DC that she owned more than 10 properties here. And I've always been intrigued because the stories was passed down from my grandmother. And now the historian of my family, which is my grand aunt, Asalee Rippey, who shares the same name as her great grandmother.
Where were some of these properties, Brigitte?
Oh, these properties, 456 M Street, 2801 13th Street, 1302 Park Road, 1505 L Street, 505 L Street. So they are all around DC, near Union Station, everywhere.
And a lot of this, I was just going to say, when you think about that period, and first of all, how was she able to acquire the properties? Even in this day and time, for somebody to own more than one house is unique. But in those days, we would think that may have been more challenging. But also, it was a time when there was this, part of the Great Migration. People were coming, from the South to the North to find jobs, and a lot of Black folks were in DC, but they were still coming to DC. So, is there anything you can tell us, one, about how she acquired the properties, and two, who was staying in those Airbnbs?
Okay, so I will tell you, that's a really good question, Denise. And that's still a mystery in our family. The question is, how did grandmother get the money to gift all of her children a house to start their own room and house businesses? Well, we believe that she came to DC with cotton picking money that she saved. Or perhaps that her white grandfather, because she was the daughter of a mulatto slave. So we believe that the funds could have perhaps come from her slave owner's white grandfather. That's where we believe the money might have come from. But she came with money in hand.
From where?
From St. George, South Carolina.
Okay.
She was born January the 1st, 1878, 13 years after the end of slavery, to her father, which was a mulatto former slave.
And so she came to DC and she purchased land. These were rooming houses. And so that she passed. How many children did she have?
She had 5 children. She had 2 girls and 3 boys. The 2 girls were twins, and she bought, when she came to DC, she brought Minnie with her. So Minnie and her stayed in a rooming house first when they first arrived here. And then they went on, they both could read and write, but they went on to further their education at Garnet Patterson School.
Interesting. And then they bought these houses. And so how did that work? I mean, how did people find the rooming houses, and how much did she charge to stay there?
Okay, so most of the business was conducted by word of mouth, okay? But I do know that she placed ads in the Star newspaper. She also placed ads in the Afro, because my grandmother told me this. And she placed ads in the Washington Post. So that's the way she received, she got her marketing out through posting ads in the newspaper.
And were those houses, those rooming houses, open to, and I'm going to use the terms of the day, only colored or Negro people, or were they open to anybody? Okay, looks like we're having a little technical difficulty. Bridget, are you still there? So we're gonna, this is fascinating. And that's what's so fascinating about this city. There's so much history. If you walk down a street and you pass a lot of the houses or the neighborhoods that we so commonly pass every day, and we really don't know the history that takes place behind those doors, the history of communities. That's one reason, and I'm gonna give a shameless plug right now, that why the Informer Charities always does our annual African American Heritage Tour. We didn't get to do one last year, but we have done them over the years because there's so much history within a 100-mile radius of this city and right here in this city. And so I think this is the time when we ought to just, take our children. That's one of the things I used to do with my sons. All summer we would have this DC Black History Day, and we would just pick a day or an afternoon and go out and just travel around and kind of see what was happening in the community. So Bridget, are you back?
I'm back. Here I am. Sorry.
Okay, we're still having a little technical, but I can hear you. So who could stay in these rooming houses? Who were the renters, and for how long?
So you asked the question. It was primarily colored people.
Okay.
And I will say that a few of our family members stayed in these houses.
Okay, I think I heard, as I said, the term of the day, colored people, and of course, family members. And I really wish we could talk some more to Bridget about this because, I want to know how many of those homes are still still owned by her family, and if how they transferred an average amount of how much her great grandmother paid for those houses. But when she mentioned those addresses, we can imagine that today those houses are probably in the millions, because that's how the housing prices in this city have increased, which makes it much more difficult for those of us to own these homes. And so, it's a struggle. And another plug, but if you follow us here at the Washington Informer, we've been doing a series that started in August on Our House. It's called Our House, Keeping Homes Black Owned. And we focus primarily in wards 6 and 7, but our story is now expanding because it's important for us as we talk about this term building generational wealth. And we're going to do a whole series of articles and programs on that. What does that mean for Black people to build generational wealth? And some say it starts with owning your own home. Some say it may not. You know, I mean, you own a home, you owe a lot of debt on the home, you die, you pass it on to somebody, and now they have to pay the debt on the home. And sometimes more often than not, they end up selling it just to pay off the debt and to pay their own debts. Yeah, we're going to try one more time and see if we can get her, because we still have a few minutes left. Bridget, you there?
I'm here. Sorry
Oh,
about
good. Yeah, no, it happens. Technology. I had a lot of questions while you were gone. One, are any of the houses that your great great grandmother owned, are any of them still owned by the family?
No. Actually, the houses stayed in our family from the 1940s up into the mid 80s, and they were passed down to offsprings, and offsprings eventually sold them. The last property I know, the one at 2801 13th Street, was eventually sold to a Howard University professor.
Interesting. Okay. And I can only imagine what your great great grandmother paid for each house, which probably in that day was probably a lot of money, even if it was $5,000 or less, and what one of those houses would have sold for today.
Okay, so
Have you looked at that?
I did look at the research. I did the research on the house that's located at 456 M Street now is valued at 2.8 million, and the house that's at 2801 13th Street is about 2.5 million. And they are currently that house is currently under construction and being converted into 4 condo units, because it's a big, large house. So they're selling units in the house right now. So
wow, that's amazing. That's
they're
amazing.
worth a lot of money right now.
So you did a book about this, and we haven't talked about the book. So yeah, tell us about that.
Okay, so of course I am an offspring of my grandmother, and I am very, very proud to say that DNA passed on to me. And I wrote my first children's book, which I pay homage to my great grandmother, Asalee Seabrook. And the name of my book is It Rains in Africa. It Rains in Africa is about the discovery of our African ancestry. And it can be purchased on Amazon.com. It's in French and English. And I also have Portuguese, Spanish, and Chinese versions coming soon.
Wow, wow. And so what will young people get out of that book when they read it?
Oh my, it's basically bridging the gap in the African diaspora. It's teaching about tracing your roots, discovering who you really are, and going back to Africa and learning that Africa is really not a bad place. You'll be surprised to learn all the great things that's in Africa.
Well, I'm thrilled because I got a chance to meet you after a group of us who did our DNA, found ourselves together in Cameroon, because that's where our ancestral roots, that's what African Ancestry showed was our ancestral roots. And was that on your millennial side, your great great grandmother's side?
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Wonderful. And my mother's on this watching us as well, and that's where mine's descent from is from Cameroon as well, on her side. And what was that experience like for you? And is that sort of captured in the book as well? Was that your first trip to Africa, first of all? Was that captured? Okay.
It was my first trip. And I am so proud of this body of work because I get to honor my great aunt, Asalee Rippey, who's watching right now. Shout out to my aunt, my grand aunt, Asalee Rippey.
Yes.
She is the only living granddaughter of the great grandmother that I'm referring to, who owned all of these properties. So her input was very, very important to this story that I'm sharing today.
Wonderful. And so you said it's called, give us the name of the book again. It Rains in Africa.
It Rains in Africa. It
And you
rains.
use the word reign. To explain why you use REIGN.
Oh yes, reign. The royal sovereign reign, meaning it rules, because I was tapped the first recognized DNA trace princess in the country of Cameroon. So that's the reason why I chose that word specifically.
Yes, yes. We do refer to you as Princess Tikar.
Exactly. Exactly. And people need to yes, 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 yes. I was given that name. And so
Right.
I honored that. I really honored that. And that was all because of the importance of me learning, embracing my ancestors. I totally was not expecting that, but that was the gift that was sent to me from my great grandparents and my great grandmothers. So I'm honored. I'm very honored.
I think that's interesting. I mean, as we wrap up, to say that, while our ancestors may no longer be with us in the physical, realm, they're still with us, mentally, physically, in our DNA, and they continue to speak to us. And I think they continue to support us. And as a consequence, you have this book. You may not
Yes,
have the houses, but you've got this book to continue to tell the story. Yes.
exactly. And it will be in the Library of Congress, in addition to all the other books that I have coming, because I also have another one coming called Swab, Reconnect, and Learn. And it's
Wow.
a commemoration, it's a learning activity book, and it's commemorative about our DNA story that happened in Cameroon. So I'm looking forward to that great body of work that will be out on April the 6th this year.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Bridget, you're quite an inspiration. We thank you so much for being with us. We hope that folks will go out and get the book and check out your own ancestry. Do that, and also tell the story. That's what's most important. Tell the story. And so, as we pass these houses in our streets of Washington D.C. and realize that Black folks owned a lot of this property, I mean, we've lost some, but we still own a lot here in D.C. and we need to value that. So. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Denise. Love
All
you.
righty. Love you too. So that brings us to an end of Win TV. I hope you enjoyed the show today. We have a great program scheduled for you next week and the following. And of course, as we go into Women's History Month, we're also going to be looking for some people that we can profile during Women's History Month. Black women, women who are leaders in business, health, science, community development, finance, all of that. So if you have any recommendations, make sure that you email us at news, at washingtoninformer.com. That's news, NEWS, at washingtoninformer.com. History is important. We can go back, but a lot of us, we find in the Washington Informer, are making history every single day. So we want to salute you and look forward to hearing from you. So having said that, have a great weekend. Remember, Sunday is Black Love Day. Be loving to yourself and to those around you. And happy Valentine's Day as well. And we'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us.